Hello, Beat Baseball World. We are back. It is just me, Neil DAWG, here alone with my partner in crime, Seth Bam Bam Clark. Sethy, hello.
What's up, man? You know, all the people who tune in just to hear me might have hung up as soon as you said it was you alone. I'm sorry, hung up. Clicked off, whatever it is. Whatever the right phraseology is. What?
I said we are here alone, starting with me, and then I said my
No,
name.
no. You said I'm here alone. But it's all good, man. Don't.
That wasn't intentional. I
know it's not intentional.
I know I get dictatorship wide, kind of. I got a little Trump on you with the show, but
I used to think I like to think of it as Neil.
That's just Neil being Neil.
But
well, hello.
Hello, Neil Dog.
As the title of the show says, Larry Reed and JC are not here with us, but this is a part.
But they're here with us in spirit. Oh.
But this is a part 3 to the 2-part episode. Really, it's just an additional part to the second part that we did with Larry Reed and JC. Even though I was very happy with like the number of views and the conversation that it sparked, I gotta say we kind of missed our mark on a lot of the conversation it sparked. Like it didn't spark what we were trying to spark. Starting with like the very first comment pointing out that, you guys are terrible at hiding who you're talking about. It's like, man, we weren't trying to hide from anything. We were trying to deliver an ugly story, like a story for us that we took as ugly, and something that JC's been holding on to for quite a while because of how it made him feel. That's really what our show was about. As far as I'm concerned, getting the fact that we're having bad situations go down like this and there's no follow-up conversation, no apologies, no, I didn't mean like nothing, you know what I mean? So that's what it
wasn't right. It wasn't trying to hide people's, identity. We don't need to. We were trying to focus on them.
It's not. Yeah, it's not about. Yeah, it was never about who the people were that said these things, and that's what people made it about on some levels. Not everybody.
Right.
There are some people that are very supportive, and thank you for getting what we were trying to do. Thank you for commenting in support of what we were trying to do. But there were a lot of the response that came down to us, whether it was out on Facebook or privately, was about the people feeling bad for the people who made these comments.
Right. And in the end, it's kind of, they know those people, right? Perhaps they're more friendly with them than they are with JC or Larry, and so their sympathies automatically go towards, towards excusing it or saying, oh no, that you're taking it wrong. You're putting our buddy in a bad light. You should never think, this is the salt of the earth, blah blah blah. But it's hard for people to separate, especially in a conversation about race. It's hard for people to separate their personal feelings from actually what's going on, what's being talked about, what the broader implications are of the information that people are transmitting. So it didn't surprise me at all in that.
Look,
on that level.
You're a black person for our blind audience that doesn't know, and you've seen this more than I've seen it. And you've seen it. I'm not surprised. Our 30-year friendship has been an education for me, and I don't see things now the same way I did 30 years ago. So, I'm not surprised either. But it's still frustrating. It's frustrating because, and to what you were just saying, as far as somebody more, and you have a certain relationship with them, man. The man that made the monkey joke to JC and his teammates that were sitting there on the side of the road with the flat tire is somebody that has been one of my favorite people in this sport.
Right.
And when
Right.
you told me that story the day before we did the show, like that was my first reaction to you, like trying to figure out how that could have not been as bad as it looks. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't get there. And it doesn't mean that the person that made the comment is racist. Everybody was more about protecting that than they were about how it made JC feel. And
Right.
and that's the most important thing here. That look, it doesn't matter who made the comment. Monkey jokes are not funny or appropriate to black people. And they
I
shouldn't
don't
be.
know if that's always true. All
Fair.
right, you white liberals can't take all our fun away from us.
You know, I don't know if we should go down this rabbit hole, but I kind of have a question along those lines in a way.
Yes,
It's a thing that as evolved as I may think I am, it's something I don't know the answer to. And it involves a monkey emoji.
Yeah.
So I'm not an emoji person. When I text, I don't do emoji. There are two that I like to do. One is of a guide dog, and if I could ever find where the stupid white cane emoji is, since I no longer have a guide dog, it would be more appropriate for me to do the white cane. But I guess I just feel like they're like that. Those are emojis that kind of would represent me. Like if somebody says, "Hey, send me a reminder," I'll just send like a guide dog emoji. Like that's my reminder. That's Neil Dog or coming at you or whatever. But when I'm being silly, one I like to do is a monkey covering their eyes. Like I'm being silly. Like I think monkeys are silly and like they make me laugh or whatever. And the covering the eyes represents me being blind or whatever I feel like, because there's a bunch of it, like monkey covering mouth, covering ears. So
well, you know that the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, they're monkeys.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I believe I've only seen that when I could see. I don't even know where.
So I'm actually sending a thing that says what? See no evil. Basically, it could be.
Yeah. So like, especially when you said those three things there,
right?
You know, to me those were speak to the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Right. And I believe, I mean, I know I saw them when I could see as monkeys. Now that might have been some racist depiction.
Right. So since we don't know what we're saying with that, we'll just let's stop. But where it comes down to my questions, not even a question, I can tell you flat out that when I'm being silly with a black person that I don't know that well, I will not send the monkey covering eyes because I don't want it to be taken offensive when it has everything to do with me and nothing to do with them. But I don't know if it would be or not. Am I right? Like,
you know, it's a crazy world now.
Yeah, that's true too.
It's a crazy world now.
That's true too. And really,
you never quite know.
That's fair. That's good. But really, that's what this comes down to. Like things get said, and you never know how the person on the receiving end is going to take it, and you have to we have to own what we say, no matter what the meaning was. I'm not saying that these stories that JC shared with us were driven by racism, but they left JC feeling a certain way where he doesn't know where they're coming from. And people should be sensitive to that. Don't care about care about I'm not asking people not to care about the individuals that said these things, but care about where it came from. Like, you know what I mean? Like, try to put that together, and let's try to put that to an end, because that's really the problem here. And I'll let you respond before because I've told you about some other things I want to talk about with Larry Reed and the Tigers, and that's kind of going to come from for me. Like I know I said something that made them probably feel a certain way that night 20 years ago, and I'm not racist, and it wasn't driven by racism. But I'd understand if for the last 20 years they've wondered where my comment was driven from. You know what I mean? And we'll go back to that. But staying on the JC thing, if you had more like of a response before I dove
No,
into Tyler.
no. I mean, you and I had spoken. You know, I think. I mean, there's something I want to bring up, but I think your Tyler comment goes in better at that point. Flows better.
Yep.
But I support what you're saying. That it is that when you put something in writing, when you say something, it is all about kind of how people take it.
Yeah. The
And
receiving
it's
end. The receiving
right, and
whatever the intention is.
right.
There's
I
a
deal with that
receiving
when
end.
people turn in papers. It's like, and they'll come in and they'll complain. It's like, but I meant to say, or I said this, like, I know you thought you did, but that's not what this says. Right. And
Yeah.
and all I can go on is what you have said right here. And I always have it, my own stuff. I turn in the paper. It's like, oh my God, I just released it to the world to judge, but it is how the world judges it that is, it is very important, especially how people are going to take things. It's not necessarily how I say things. I realize that, you have the right to say things however you want. And hopefully people will understand that you're not coming at it in a negative way or from a racist way, or you're just making a joke or whatever. But you always have to be open to the idea that people won't be taking it that way, and if they don't
have
take it
to
that
own
way,
that. You can't just dismiss
exactly.
it because they didn't take it the way you meant it.
Right,
Like
exactly. Right.
there's a reason in there, and that you've seen my struggles over the years. A lot of people have taken me in a way that I didn't intend to be taken.
Yeah.
And it's been a struggle with me my entire adult life. Like I think I've
Right.
gotten better at it, and I still say things that rub people the wrong way at times. And there's times that
Yeah.
was my intention, but there's a lot of times when it's not my intention.
Right.
And so like, but I still had to own it. You know what I mean? I dated a
Right.
woman once who was partially sighted, and one of her reasons for breaking up with me was she thought I held it against her that she had eyesight, and it couldn't have been further from the truth. But I had to own the fact that I made her feel that way. My
Right.
comments, my jokes, my whatever I was doing
Right. Right.
contributed. Maybe her own issues contributed to
How
taking
she
it so
took it.
far.
Right.
Yeah.
How she
But
took it.
I
Right.
had
But
to
no.
own my part of it.
Right.
And that goes
Right.
the same with race relations. Like
Yeah.
people can't what got said to JC and his team, how many monkeys does it take to change a tire? Like you gotta own that. You gotta be smart enough to know that not everybody thinks that's funny. Not, and
Right.
people shouldn't still think that's funny. It was never
Right.
funny, but you know what I mean. The world was the power struggle with race. People were like that was accepted as funny, but it shouldn't be. And we're not going to accept it as funny. So that somebody wants to make that joke, we're going to come here and talk about it. And it
Right.
doesn't mean the person said it is bad off as that kind of joke could make them. But man, own it. If like everybody who feels pointed out, felt pointed out as our last show, reach out to us. You're welcome to come tell us your side. You know what I mean?
Put you
Don't
on the
defend
show. Give you
yourself
the
in the.
platform.
Yeah,
You
you
know.
have this same platform that JC and Larry Reed had. You are welcome to come speak openly and say your piece. And I mean, in the end, you're not. Well, I don't know. Look, we're looking for healthy conversation. We're not looking to attack anybody. This was never about more division. It was about healthy conversation, about bad situations.
Well,
Only
and hold on, and since
go ahead.
you kind of moved off from where you had been going earlier, and this kind of actually opens up to where what I wanted to bring up real quick, and then we can
Cool.
go right back to what you were going to say. Um, I mean that is the intention of why we did the show or whatever. And JC and Larry both wanted to do the show. They had something they wanted to say. They thought it was important to get it out there in the public eye, and they did it in hopes of trying to make the NBBA a better place, right? A more inclusive place, a more open place.
Right. Right.
Now, I, right, I've been on sports teams all my whole life, and I understand the sanctity of the locker room, and I understand the sanctity of the team meeting rooms. All right, I am a member of the Heat. The president of this league is also a member of the Heat. JC is also a member of the Heat.
Right. All
We
team.
had a team meeting, right? We're teammates, right? We had a team meeting at the beginning of this season to talk about, the beginning of the season, obviously practice, blah, blah, blah. But also to talk about the show. That the show was brought up. And I'm
So
not
this team
saying,
meeting was after we did the two
yes,
part.
right.
Okay.
Yes, it was after the two-parter and stuff like that. I'm not going to talk about what was brought up in any way, shape, or form, but I do have to call out our president, right? And I call out our president as president because I personally believe, when you're president, when you wear your president hat, you are representing the whole league. You
Everybody.
have you have a duty to fulfill. And so when you're wearing your president's hat, you need to be very careful about what it is you are doing. When you're doing something professionally, you be careful in what you're saying. Now, there are two things that President Boudreaux said in our meeting that pissed me off, right? Beyond belief. Now, one, he said, I'm as president, right? As president. This is what he said in the meeting, as president. So I feel he took off his team hat and put on his president's hat at that point in time. And what he said is he felt as president, his job was to make sure these things didn't make it out into the open, right? And to me, that runs counter to what the president should actually be doing, right? Yes, he pointed out, oh, we have an ethics, via code and blah, blah, blah. But that's just a way to, for somebody to say, for an individual to say something and then have it buried by the powers that be, right? That's, sunshine is the best disinfectant. And I was so pissed, right? So pissed that he would have this attitude that that's his job, right? To make sure
To mush it,
that
basically.
yeah, to smush things so there's no waves and stuff like that. And it goes into what you were saying, right? I mean, what we want is for people to talk about this stuff, bring it out, figure out how we as an organization are going to deal with it, live together, have a great time together, and push these things, push these things to the forefront so we can then deal with these things. Don't bury them so they always continue going on, right? and then say, oh well, nobody ever says anything, so obviously we're an inclusive organization, right? So that was I was really, really pissed. Now he said something else. I'm not even going to bring it up. Except I will. He implied that he did not watch the show, and that to me, as president, right, player Boudreaux has no obligation to watch the show whatsoever. Nobody has an obligation.
Actually, I wouldn't even go as far as saying President Boudreaux has an obligation to watch it, but if he's going to take a stance
right
on what we should or not be doing, should be or not be doing, I would think at that point, again, if you're going to take a stance, you should be somewhat obligated to see what you're taking a stance on.
Right, and on further, if you have two of the three black coaches in your league talking about their experiences with race in your league, I would think you'd want to listen to it, right? I would think you'd want to listen to what they have to say. So perhaps you could address it in a better way than, oh, I'm just going to sweep it under the rug. so,
Well, and,
so
and
those are, go ahead, sorry. Go
well,
ahead.
I don't understand it from the standpoint like when you tell me like the comments made that it's his job to not let this get out in the open. It's like, well, what then is the point of having the code of ethics? Like,
Right,
if it's not there to, I guess, kind of oversee all these type situations, like what's why if you're going to sweep all these things under the rug, why do you need to have a code of ethics? You know what I mean? It would never
right,
get to that point. So I guess I don't understand that. Like any other problem in the league, they form a committee, they have meetings. I don't understand what makes this different. But I
right,
also know that, like, because look, in the end, in all fairness, this is questioning like the way he's choosing to show leadership in this
right,
situation, and that does tie into like where I'm going with the. And I think we're doing good on time. Let you know, I
right.
checked the time.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've been checking this all
okay, I'll stop.
the
But I was
time.
looking out for you.
People, it's the before times. We have flag football to go coach.
We are squeezing this in between obligations, but because it's important to us. And
right,
look,
right.
hey, look, Blake Boudreau, you're welcome as well to come share your side of this. We're talking about you directly. You have the same open floor to come on this show and share your side of things without being like, with the without it being controlled. You got total freedom to say what you need to say to us anytime.
Right.
Um, but since we've questioned like the type of leadership that shows, look, I'm going to fall on my own sword. Like I going back to the story Larry Reed showed with the Tyler Tigers involving our own team set, the West Coast Dogs, in 2001. We're not, people could go back and listen to the episode. You know what I mean? We can't relive the whole
Oh,
thing.
yeah, we got
But
like 10 minutes. We
yeah,
can't do all
so
of this stuff. We got time. It's a time constraint. Busy
excuse me.
men. Neil Dog. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So, and neither of these things should take too long.
Right,
Um,
no, no.
one, like the two players that created all that from our team, like people have no idea. Like that was just literally one of five things that went on between, like when they came crashing into the banquet, like Jan Trephagen or whoever was doing the announcing and stuff was already on stage giving out awards. It's not like they came in, a little bit late, drunk, and in their uniforms. Like the MBBA officials were on the stage handing out awards and stuff. Like it's quiet when they did this. So that was so that's what, like 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
Literally between then and I don't know, 10 o'clock, there were five infractions from those two players. Five infractions, including being thrown out of like the hotel bar. Like, so that night was a night you and I just wanted to bury as soon as we could. As soon as we could, because
For sure.
it was supposed to be a great night. We had just won our third championship in a row. It was supposed to be a great night of celebration, and it was a horrible night that we couldn't live through fast enough. So,
I don't
one,
think I even got a beer or that night. But go ahead.
one, like where I'm ashamed of myself as I heard Larry Reed tell that story. Like we were so busy putting out all these other fires, like, and then at some point after, it wasn't even that night. I don't even know if we were still in Ohio when you found out from your dad what happened involving Tyler. We didn't know it that night. I never ever once considered reaching out to Tyler and asking them about it. I've seen your dad a billion times since then. I never asked your dad about it. I just took your accounting and left it at that. You know what I mean? I never sat down with your dad and said, "Man, what did you see?" I didn't investigate. I was a board member. I wasn't just the leader of the dogs, one of them. Well, you and I were both captains. Eric was the third captain. Don didn't have anything to do with it. Well, I guess Chris
Right.
was still the head coach, but neither they stayed out.
Right.
You know, you and I handled everything with that. But we did it as badly as some of these other situations as far as wanting to mush it. You know what I mean? There was a legal situation that night we couldn't get away from fast enough, in all fairness. You know what I mean? And looking back, uh, that wasn't right either. You know what I mean? We didn't own any of that. Not that we created the actions, but it was our team. We were board members. I was. You became one shortly after that, but I was a board member. I was a captain on that team. I did nothing. I never ever reached out to Tyler and apologized to them. I'm apologizing to you now, Larry Reed and the Tyler Tigers. Not that it matters 20 years later when most of those players are gone. But there's a second part to that where I need to fall on my sword too. And I mean, just I'm less proud of this probably, but like that night when we were walking down the hallway, we went by Tyler's room, and Tyler was celebrating one of their players had made the All-Star team. And I talked about it with Larry that, you know, Tyler was thought of as a team that had cheaters. Now, I didn't know what players, like, I didn't know any player by name that anybody thought cheated, but I fell into the group of just listening to whatever people were saying and making comments. Like, cheating's always been a thing for people like you and I who are totals. Like, it's really a conversation that's tough for us to be part of because we can't make our own judgment on it. So we were walking by Tyler's room, and they were celebrating that, and I made some kind of comment about them cheating their way to it. The player's name, I looked it up before we started the show. I believe it was Phil Trailer. You know me, I'm terrible with names, so I should have written it down. But I believe his name was Phil Trailer. And I'm sorry for throwing shade on that accomplishment, because honestly, even if they had a cheater or two on their team during any of that time, I don't even know who they were. So taking it away from anything away from Phil Taylor just because of things I had heard over a couple of years or whatever was just chicken nonsense on my side. I don't want to cuss on this episode because I'm not, you know, I told you I want us to be a cleaner. I wanted us to deliver today in a better way, but I was chicken is all hell. I was a coward about how I did that. And what makes me most ashamed of that is in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've stopped talking to one of my family members, and the reasons go deeper than what we could cover in one show probably. But one of the main things he does that I don't respect or like is what I describe as hit and runs. He says any nasty thing he wants and hangs up the phone or walks away. You know what I mean? It's like you can only get mad at his back because he makes any comment he wants and disappears. And I hate that about him. And I did that same thing. That's who I was that night.
No, I don't think you should blame yourself on that. Anyway,
well, I don't, but where it comes around. All right, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say, because I was with you on that walk. We were walking to Vic.
You're the only one that's ever held me accountable for what I did there.
Right, but you said it. You're right.
And you're the one that cleaned up the mess. I wasn't going to leave that out. You stayed there. Like, I wasn't so cowardice that I didn't pay attention. Like, had I heard you, I was listening. And I knew they came out and you were there confronting them for my mess. But you were laughing. So I didn't stay there and own it. Like you mushed it. Like what we're saying was wrong. What we accused the president. Like you stayed there and mushed it for me. But I did nothing. I didn't own it. I was a coward about what I did. And where I say this all comes around, because we're talking about how things get done that make, like this whole thing with JC, like both those stories he told were in the same day. And maybe like the earlier one all by itself wouldn't have left him feeling a certain way, but them compiling left him feeling a certain way.
Right.
And the Tyler players had already been through this nonsense
Oh
with,
yeah.
with our
Oh
two
yeah.
teammates. And then me, a
Right.
captain and a board member, goes and makes a jerk off comment to them walking by
Right.
their room that I don't even stick around, and I'm not even man enough or grown up enough. I don't like to make it about gender, but I wasn't even grown up enough to stand around and take one in the mouth if I deserved it. You know what I mean? So,
but
it,
you might have. I told you, man, don't worry about it. Go on, man. Let's not worry about
either way, I just
it.
say
Right?
I didn't
I
own
mean,
it,
I don't,
but where
right,
it comes around is it had to have left them feeling a certain way about me.
right.
And
Oh
I
yeah,
wasn't being racist. I was being a jerk. I wasn't being
right.
racist. But after what already happened to them, they probably thought the dogs were a racist team. And I was part of the contributing part. So this is where
Right.
it just comes down to, look, own what you say. Let's have conversations and let's get past these things. Me included. I'm a guilty part of all this. So let's all just do better. That's where we were going with this. Let's do better. If you want to come on and have a conversation that's healthy and contribute towards making this better and setting us straight on things that we got wrong, you're welcome. You're invited. Come on, reach out to us and we'll do it.
I agree with that. And all I'll say is, we as the dogs paid for that. We paid that night. That night we were
I mean,
supposed to
our
have a good
team,
champion.
the
We
slow,
were,
we started a slow death after that.
yeah, and even that night, our night was spent with nothing but drama.
Oh yeah,
We got to the
it
end of the,
lasted
we got to the end of that hall, right? We got into that hall. I helped avoid drama with Tyler. We got to the end of the
just to
hall. We
break
knocked,
up a
yeah,
brawl between two of
yeah,
our
exactly.
teammates.
Exactly. And it was just nothing but a nightmare from that point
Oh yeah,
on. So
oh yeah.
perhaps and like I said, we never at least that pretty much that core team never won a championship together. That was the only time in our lives we had a chance to celebrate a championship. The last time we had a chance to celebrate a championship, and
And
it
it
was all
never
screwed up by
happened.
the exact same player.
It never
You know what
happened.
I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
we paid we
And,
paid
and, and, to,
a
and to
some a price for it,
to
a little price.
continue bringing it full circle, like as far as like how people felt about like the people that were involved in these stories with JC,
Sure,
we have good feelings about the two players that were involved that night.
sure,
Like one of them, I had paid to get to that World Series. The other one, you got on the team. The one who was most offensive that night. We like
sure,
both those guys. We like
sure,
those guys. We're not here like wanting to just throw them under the bus, like I
sure.
threw them aside. We still like those guys. But that night was inappropriate. I mean, it's
Right.
not about like when it comes to this stuff, it's not about liking and not liking. It's about
Hell no.
learning and getting better. Learning.
If I could quote Woodrow Call right before he
Oh,
had
great
Jake
Texas
Spoon.
Ranger. The great Texas Ranger. Captain Woodrow Call.
Yeah, right before he had Jake Spoon hanged.
You ride with horse thieves, you die with horse thieves. Is
Yeah,
that where you're
exactly,
going?
man. Yeah, well, in the end, nobody would get it because you'd have to know that in
Yeah.
the end, he executed his friend for breaking the law, right? But in the end, it wasn't about his friend. It
Yeah.
was about the fact that his
Yeah.
friend broke the law, and you have to do what's right, regardless of if it's your friend or not. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where it was just a more of a, I should say, an inside point to back up what you were saying.
And listen, that's what makes our friendship so genuine. Like you held me accountable that night. I hold you accountable on stuff. Like that's what
Right,
friends do. You know what I mean? I mean
right,
that's what people who like trust each other do. Like if you see somebody close to you, all these people who were worried about protecting those who were involved in JC stories, and if you agree with any part of that, sit down with them. Any part of what we've said, sit down and talk to them. Have a healthy conversation with them. So I don't know. I don't know anything else to add, but We wanted to take one more shot at people really hearing where we're going with this and not turning it into something we didn't want it to be to begin with. That the reason we kept this so anonymous is because we don't want to make it a finger pointing, you're a this, you're a that. We're not accusing anybody of anything except for not communicating well enough. Let's get better. Let's get better as a league. Starting at the top, please. Please care about communicating with all your, with all your players. That's not asking too much. I should have been better as a leader. You can be better as a leader. It's that simple.
Yeah. And on those words, Neil Dog, I think it's time for football, man.
Absolutely.
Those are good words, man.
Absolutely.
Good words.
Thank you for everybody that tuned in. Thank you, Seth Dog, for your time. Thank you, Mr. Frank Porter. And we will catch you next time around. Good night, Aunt Cindy.
Go Cowboys!